What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily. We're currently in this purgatory of the NBA playoffs, right? We're in the play-in where the games and the statistics of the game don't even actually count towards the player's career. Isn't that nuts? But last night, we're fresh off of Anthony Davis, Nico Harrison's little Maverick gem, showing up and sending the Sacramento Kings off to Cancun. We also had the Chicago Bulls give up in the first half, as now the Miami Heat will take on the Atlanta Hawks to decide who gets the benefit of playing the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. So while we're waiting for all of that to shake out, while we're waiting for game one of the Boston Celtics series against the Orlando Magic to tip off on Sunday, let's do a little off-season crystal ball what if could happen, right? Because one of the big things that did happen for the Celtics this season off of the court was that they have now new ownership, right? We've got Bill Chisholm, who dropped $6 billion. Honestly, it's going to be closer to 7, I think, when all is said and done, to become the new owner of the Boston Celtics. And now, listen, they've said all of the right things, right? Wyc Grousbeck, who we now know did not really want to sell the team, has come out and said, hey, I'm still going to be involved for a couple of years. Everything is fine. Well, if we've learned anything from new ownership, everything might be fine until it's not, right? We can look at the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns were on the precipice of an NBA title until the Greek Freak and the now Boston Celtic Drew Holiday got a little spicy and the Milwaukee Bucks took down that championship. Right, we had that core of Chris Paul, who, yes, of course, was aging. Devin Booker, who was just entering his prime. You had DeAndre Ayton, the young big. And within the blink of an eye, Matt Ishbia, who everybody's talked about as being a Michigan State basketball player. Congrats, Ishbia. Comes in. First thing he does, Chris Paul, listen, you're going to get out of here. And that kind of makes sense. Again, aging. DeAndre Ayton, you're heading up to Portland. You're going to get Yusuf Nurkic in return. And then what about Kevin Durant? Let's get Kevin Durant to come on down. So we'll get rid of Mikal Bridges and 45 first-round picks. Oh, and Cam Johnson as well. And then, hey, you know what, Chris Paul? We're going to get rid of you for Bradley Beal, a guy who has a trade clause. There's like 2 players in the NBA right now with a no trade clause, and it's LeBron James and Bradley Beal. And now look at where the Phoenix Suns organization is at. They are in shambles, right? Bradley Beal, they actively were trying to trade him, and I just told you, no trade clause. Bradley Beal's like, hey, I'm actually fine in Phoenix. They tried to trade Kevin Durant without telling him before the All-Star break, and then when they do try to tell him, Katie's like, nah, I'm actually all set with that, and now he's clearly on his way out. And then they just fired Coach Mike Budenholzer, which will now give Devin Booker his 8th coach in 11 years. Not great, Bob. And then you saw what happened with Dallas. New ownership takes over, right? Mark Cuban sells the team. Mark, you're still going to be involved. No, you're not, Mark. Mark, within a blink of an eye, was no longer involved in the organization, and now Luka Doncic is on the Los Angeles Lakers, while the Dallas Mavericks are just in shambles as well. So, is it all doom and gloom? No, probably not. The Celtics have a great core intact, right? They're paying Jason Tatum a lot of money. They're paying Jaylen Brown a lot of money. They've got Porzingis and Drew Holiday both under contract. So the core is still intact. But again, new ownership, they want to feel like, hey, I just spend my money. Let's flex a little bit. And again, this is a what if. I predict that the Celtics will go back to the NBA Finals this season, but let's say they get knocked off by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals, or something weird happens in the second round. Does Bill Chisholm kind of look at himself in the mirror and be like, hey, did I spend $6+ billion to get knocked out this early? Am I really going to be paying 2 players a combined $600 million over their time here with the Boston Celtics and Tatum and Brown just to not get to the finals? Again, he's probably going to be fine with that. But what about Drew Holiday? What about Porzingis? So something to pay attention this offseason. Again, this is a huge what if. Does new ownership get involved, or do they stay true to their word and take a back seat and just kind of let Brad Stevens do Brad Stevens stuff? That is what I would like to see happen. But I don't know if that is what's going to happen. So let's just hope the Celtics get back to the finals, and then we can just delete this video. We never have to pretend it even happened. But let's talk about the Phoenix Suns a little bit more, huh? A little bit more, because I don't know if you guys saw the reporting that came out. Pretty conveniently timed, by the way, a couple of weeks ago when Shams went on the Pat McAfee show, and he was like, actually, I can confirm that back in 2019 or whatever year it was, that the Celtics were actually interested in Kevin Durant. Well, we now know KD is no longer going to be on the Phoenix Suns. They've basically kind of come to that agreement already. They've spoken pretty publicly that KD and the Phoenix Suns are going to work on getting him to a spot that's better for him. And it's going to be better for the Suns, too, because they need to figure out how the heck to dig themselves out of the hole that Matt Ishbia threw themselves into, right? So KD, you have to imagine, is going to try to find a situation that is winning basketball. I would think at this point in his career, I'm assuming he wants to be playing basketball in June, right? And again, if the Celtics kind of slip up a little bit and they want to try to get off a big long-term contract to take on a shorter-term contract, do they mess around? Do they try to bring KD back to Boston? Again, I think that'd be pretty short-sighted. KD, obviously, one of the best scorers in NBA history. It immediately makes any team better, okay? So there's no denying that. But KD's probably closer to my age than he is to Jaylen Brown's age, right? And to acquire somebody like that, I imagine somebody like Jaylen Brown or a high-value player would have to be included in that contract or in that transaction, because the Suns are so hamstrung by the second apron that I'm not even really sure how many teams they could actually move KD to, because it's so expensive. Of course, Houston comes to mind, but Houston, not similar to Boston, but Houston, this is like their first postseason run, right? So I'm assuming the management, the front office, is sitting back and being like, let's see what we got, right? There's no need to panic yet. Let's see what we got. And then maybe if KD makes sense, we can make a move. Now, if I had to put some percentages on this, I would say like 90% KD is not in a Boston Celtics uniform next season. But there is that 10%, right? There is that 10%. So once again, if we go back to the first segment that we talked about, let's just hope we get a Celtics finals run, okay? And then we don't. We just set this video on fire. We never have to talk about it again. But again, since we're talking off season, this is why we need the playoff games to start immediately, so I stop spiraling down to the off season. We need to focus on the postseason. But if we do want to talk about the first to go, let's just quickly go over some of the Celtics contracts heading in to this off season, okay? These are the free agents, okay? And again, it's not a bunch of big names, but we've got the Portuguese Prince, Namias Queta. He's going to be a free agent. Sammy Hauser. Hauser kid. Sam Hauser is going to be a free agent. Now, I think the biggest issue for Boston is going to be that role, and that's why I think they've been excited from what they've seen from the rookie Baylor Shireman down the stretch here when he's gotten an opportunity to play. Like, I don't know if he can shoot as lights out as our guy Sammy, but Sam Hauser right now is currently making $5.6 million as his contract is about to end this offseason, and I imagine Sam Hauser is going to be making a little bit more than that, and I think because, again, the Celtics are paying guys like Tatum $300 million, Brown almost $300 million. You got Drew Holiday making like a bunch of millions. You got Derek White over $100 million. Like, there's just a lot of money being spent already, right? So I do think you're going to see Sammy Hauser in a different uniform next year. So Sammy, let's get one more ring before you get out of here. Also, the X-Man, Xavier Tillman, and honestly, maybe my favorite player, Luke Cornett, is another one who's probably about to get paid a little bit more aggressively on his way out. So I would love to see Luke Cornett retire as a Boston Celtic because, one, he's done a really good job as a backup big. He's been great on the boards, provides levity in the locker room. He's got to be one of the funniest guys that we've seen in the history of the Boston Celtics. I'll put him up there with Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin, underrated Celtic comedian. Overrated Celtic, but underrated Celtic comedian. So that's something we have to pay attention to. Also, Drew Peterson, J.D. Davison, those guys are also free agents, along with Torrey Craig, who we picked up during this regular season. But to me, Sammy Hauser and Luke Cornett, the bench mob, if you will, are two important pieces that I imagine will find themselves in a new organization next season, and not because they're not having a great time with Boston. This is their time to get paid, right? And so they need to go collect that bag, and this is what you do. You become a meaningful role player in championship runs, and then you boost your value up, and you go somewhere else to get paid. Excuse me. So that would be my guess. And let's wrap up here. In this doom and gloom segment, right? With who are some of the free agents heading into this offseason that maybe, could come to the Celtics. Now, most of these probably can't make their way to Beantown. Some of them have player options as well. But they're big names, and I think they're important to pay attention to. James Harden, who's been on an incredible run with the Clippers, he's technically going to be a free agent with a player option this upcoming offseason. Kyrie Irving, who now has all of the leverage in the world, right? We know he's probably not going to be back until late in next season, although I did see a report last night that they're hoping for January. I think that's very hopeful. He's got a player option as well, but gosh, Dallas needs to re-sign him, right? Because we already talked about Dallas. LeBron James also has a player option. Chris Middleton in the Wizards, I promise you he's probably not going to be in Washington unless he wants to get paid one more time, collect that big salary one more time before going to a contender. I don't know if Chris is like, thank God, I'm playing with the Washington Wizards. Julius Randle, our guy Randle over with the Minnesota Timberwolves, I could see him just wanting to make sure he gets that money a little bit more. Russell Westbrook, now that's an interesting one. I think we could see him on another team. It was all roses and sunshine there for a little bit. He does have a player option, so maybe he wants to stay with Denver, but the vibes turned sour here the last couple of weeks of the regular season. We have a couple restricted free agents that are pretty interesting. Santi Aldama, who was like flirting with the sixth man of the year for the Memphis Grizzlies for a while. You get the Charlotte Hornets, Moussa Diabate, who was on a two-way to start the season. He was awesome this year. Josh Giddey-Up of the Chicago Bulls. Maybe we get some information by the time this video gets posted, now that the Bulls have been eliminated, what their like direction is heading into next season. But one of the ones that I find very intriguing is Jonathan Kuminga. Will the Warriors want to pay him and keep him there for another season? Because I don't know if you've been paying attention to Golden State here down the stretch where they treated that Clippers game like a playoff game and then the play-in game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Combined in those two games, how many minutes do you think Jonathan Kuminga played? I'll answer for you. 0. He played 0 minutes. So I don't think we're going to see him in a Warriors uniform next year. And then you get Cam Thomas. Now, we've got a couple of unrestricted free agents as well here. Karis LeVert from the A-Town Down Atlanta Hawks. You've got Miles Turner for the Indiana Pacers. I assume he stays there. But one option that would be really fun, and I don't think we'll be able to make it happen, Yabusele. Remember Yabusele, right? Played with Boston, really struggled, went over to France, dominated in the Olympics. Then the Sixers signed him, and it was literally the only bright spot for Philly this whole entire season. Let's pay Yabusele. Let's get Yabu Dabu Doo over here. A couple other names to monitor, too, that honestly, this makes more sense for them to land in a place like Boston. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Malik Beasley, who is probably going to be long for Detroit because he has been knocking down triples for them. The big man, Clint Capella, could see him take a reserved role on some sort of playoff team. Ty Jerome's probably going to get himself paid. You got Tyus Jones, who I promise you will not be in Phoenix next season after they promised him a starting spot and then he lost it in that dumpster fire of an organization. Memphis's sharpshooter, Luke Kennard, that could be a name to watch. Old man Brook Lopez, old man Chris Paul, and then old body Ben Simmons. That kind of rounds out that list. So I think the offseason is going to be pretty spicy, and a lot of Boston's direction will depend on how they do this postseason. I think if we see them make another finals run, or maybe you lose in 7 to the Cavs or something like that, I don't think you press the panic button. But if it's clear the Celtics are not going to compete at that high level with the Cavs and the OKC Thunder, new ownership gets funky. We've seen it happen before. We see it happen almost every single time, but I hope we don't see it here with the Boston Celtics. I promise. Listen, the next video we do is just going to be all positivity, okay? Rainbows, sunshine, flowers, balloons, shamrocks. That's all we're going to do. This was too doomy, too gloomy, but it's something we have to look at because the offseason is where it gets juicy, especially when your team's spending a lot of money that just got a new ownership that is always championship caliber level basketball. That's the plight of being a Boston Celtics fan. You win some rings, but then it gets stressful. Appreciate everybody tuning in for the Celtics Daily. My name is Mike Zakarian. Before you get out of here, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a little comment, too. Who would you like to see the Celtics go after this offseason? And thanks for watching.